Well, it's Hank and Hugh again, and we're doing another Great Greta, part 3 this time. And just referring back to the last one, if you remember where we left off, I think the big question we were trying to answer, and why this is such an interesting topic for me, is where does Greta go from here? I showed you in the previous videos how there have been other Gretas, but people seem to have a lot of hope for Greta. There's a lot of hope that she might be different. She might lead a children's crusade. She might be Joan of Arc. And I think Greta's at the point where she decides, is she going to go against the system, or is she going to just carry on trying to reform the system? If she goes against the system and the machine, she'll have a dramatic impact. Otherwise, I think she's just chafe, and you can just ignore her. If she carries on and just does, this kind of reformist thing, green the machine and let's get carbon neutral, and it's like, she might as well just go home to Sweden and die. But where she becomes interesting is if she bites the hand that feeds her. And clearly the guys that have originally, started out, she was actually made by this guy who's a Swedish entrepreneur. I mean, she's completely manufactured, okay? But that doesn't mean she's not going anywhere. The guy who originally found her and did the setup with the school strike, okay, for starters, she was in a special school. She's not actually striking from school. She was allowed to be out of school. And this entrepreneur guy, it's this normal left-wing entrepreneur, green guy, the future's green, and hey, I can make some money out of it. And that's a very common kind of character. And he fell out with Greta and her folks because he did a prospectus, and basically he tried to sell Greta in his prospectus and essentially this company, basically green future. And he oversold Greta without her permission, basically covered the prospectus and basically pinned her. So I think she's kind of patched up with him, but he's definitely not the guy who's promoting her, putting her in front of the United Nations, all of these kind of things. It's a big business. Greta is a big business. She has security guards. She has a security detail. The kind of thing like when she came over from America to the COP in Spain, you remember that she came across. She came across on that boat called La Vagabond.
Yeah, and she had to come across on a boat. She couldn't just fly, because she'd lose all credibility if she actually just flew like everybody else. So she did the whole boat thing.
Yeah, she has to maintain.
She's under incredible scrutiny. She has bodyguards for a reason, right? I mean, she's an attractor of just all kinds of craziness.
Oh yeah, but the point of bringing it up is it's not a little girl at school and stuff. There's a big business behind her.
This is a symbol.
This is basically Greta Inc. And, somebody has to pay for 5 security guards, a detail wherever she goes. And I just raise it because it's really climate change. It's not to say that what the guys are doing is not good, or they're not well-intentioned, or they're just trying to make money, but they're trying to manufacture consent, especially from the left. Not necessarily a bad thing. They might be well-intentioned. But we shouldn't lose sight of the fact that this is something that is engineered. And if it carries on, the vested interests in her are things, environmentalism, but more really the green tech industry. So she's got more big business behind it. Not a lot of people are backing her because they want to save the whale, or they care about the ecology of the planet. It's basically the wrong kind of green is backing her. But and it's all done for political reasons. It's to engineer consent for things like Green New Deals and these particularly things where it gets a bit odious is things like a market for carbon, which I think is a very bad idea, and will turn into the market for energy, and Enrons and stuff wait in the wings. Carbon carbon taxes and the carbon market are just plain big business fraud. Or
it's a race to the bottom. It's another way of racing to the bottom.
Oh, it's trying to make a buck.
Monetizing nature and destroying it.
Yeah, it's trying to make a buck out of collapse. I can easily show you investors that say, oh, you've got to get into the carbon market because it's going to be the biggest emerging market ever. And it's like, you're talking about planetary destruction. It's kind of like the guy saying, hey, Hank's just got cancer. We've got to get into the cancer market because that's the big emerging thing. It's a bit sick, but that's
it's imagine. Yeah, to me, it's kind of like being, locked in a casino in Vegas. And they're betting in Vegas, and they're betting about everything. They're betting about politics, horses, those gambling rooms in these casinos in Vegas. Imagine you're locked in a hotel, right? And you're doing that. And then the hotel itself catches fire. And now they're just betting on who's going to die on the top floor and who's going to die on the second. Now they're betting about who's dying in the casino, right? They're just making money on the whole casino burning down, and they're betting on who's going to die next in the room. It goes back to Dr. Strangelove, right?
Deck of the Titanic.
Yeah.
The Titanic's burning. Okay, who's going to take me up on this? I bet you the women and children don't make it to the lifeboats. I'll bet you $100 you're right.
We're going to make a killing. We're going to
make a killing. It's like, what a moron. He thinks the women and children are going to be first. It's never going to happen. He's a moron. It's that kind of deal. Exactly. It's terrible. But that is
the whole carbon thing.
I just wanted to say something as well. Since we mentioned Le Vagabond and that, I want to mention something about that because I mentioned Le Vagabond. That's the boat that she came across on. Now, the first thing I want to say is it's completely phony because ostensibly it's so she doesn't have to take a flight. Now,
right.
Now that boat, Le Vagabond, is kind of notorious in the sailing community because of these two. Yeah, basically it's two guys. It's Riley and Elena, and they have a story. They became YouTubers and they paid for their sailing, and now they got a boat. That boat's an Outremer, $1 million boat. They got it at a discount just because they're YouTubers and influencers. And so
they're posers. They're posers.
Yeah. But Riley's notorious in the sailing community because he went to sea without any sailing knowledge at all. He bought a boat in Italy, a monohull called Le Vagabond. And I don't know how he's still alive. He's just the world's worst sailor.
No, I had no idea how to sail. I'd done a couple of very small trips, maybe a day and a half or something like that. So, yeah, to the point where when Lucas and I first rolled out the head sail, we actually didn't even know how to furl it back in. So, yeah, it's been a pretty steep learning curve.
He's spent 3 or 4 years now that he's been afloat, and he still doesn't know anything about sailing. He's just dangerous.
And he took Greta across the Atlantic Ocean. This guy took Greta.
No, but here's the thing. This is why it's a bit of a fraud, because they flew 2 crew out, and I understand that they flew a genuine skipper out. So whoever Greta's handlers were, they weren't gonna let her be in Riley's hands.
Well, you guys, you're not gonna believe this, but Riley and I are sailing Greta Thunberg and her dad across the North Atlantic to get them back home. So it's November, the weather's gonna be really crazy, but we're off to a good start. Yesterday we had 25 knots of wind. We were both a little seasick, Greta and I. 3,200 nautical miles. Wish us luck. So if you're wondering how the heck all this came about, to cut a very long story short, basically we saw Greta's tweet about hoping to find a lift across the Atlantic, and Riley responded, but she gets a million responses, so she didn't see it, but a friend of a friend did. And then it's all a bit hazy, but we got a phone call from Jimmy Cornell, who conveniently enough had Greta's friend's contact details, and he was like, hey, do you want Greta's friends contact details? And we were like, yeah. Riley sent her a message saying, I heard a young lady needs a lift across the Atlantic, which I got a note about because I thought it could have come off as a little bit unprofessional and maybe even creepy with us.
I think we can be of assistance. Elena and I will have to juggle a lot of different things around, but yeah, we've agreed to it. We're happy to make it happen.
Welcome on board, Greta.
Thank you so much.
Are you looking forward to the crossing?
I am very much looking forward to the crossing. This boat is just amazing. I feel at home already.
No.
So that's good. It's so cozy. You have an activist.
An actor, an activist, two film stars, and a sailor.
And a sailor.
Yes.
Yeah.
We need a
I'm a sailor as well. Come on.
So that's why it's a bit of a fraud. Is at least 3 crew members flew out to New York from the UK to do that crossing. So it would have been much less of a carbon footprint for Greta to just hop on a plane. And so that's why it's a little bit phony. But anyway, that Riley obviously just cashed in. You know, he's a notorious cash in. And actually, I want to tell you this little story that's a bit of an aside from Greta. But it kind of goes back into the royals now. And since I brought up La Vagabond, I think I want to tell this story. And I hope I get forgiven for telling it. But anyway, Riley and Elena are a subject of conversation in the sailing circuit. And, you know, everybody speculates how to stay afloat, you know, sailing and how to pay for it. And, you know, Riley and Elena, you know, have the life of Riley, and they really have done well. I think they make something like $60,000 or something a month, I think, I believe, or something out of
Wow, just being on a boat.
Yeah, by vlogging on YouTube. And so everybody wants to emulate them. So
The book I'm talking about, reading to you, is David Foster Wallace's The Pale King. And when I read it for the second time a few months ago, one particular passage I remember distinctly, and I thought that I'd read it out to you guys. Gentlemen, here is the truth. Enduring tedium over real time in a confined space is what real courage is. Such endurance is, as it happens, the distillate of what is, today, in this world neither I nor you have made, heroism. Heroism. Here is the truth. Actual heroism receives no ovation, entertains no one. No one queues up to see it, no one is interested. I love that. To anyone that's ever watched one of our episodes in an office or sat there and dreamed, like, I would much rather be sailing than tapping away here. This goes out to you guys because I think it turns out that you're my hero's hero. Thanks for watching, everyone. Really appreciate it.
The truth is, for a few to be immortal, many must die.
They've caused a lot of millennials to go to sea and to emulate them, and so they actually changed the whole sailing industry. But so when they got that Outremer and did a big splash in Grand Mot in France, they had a big party for all the Patreon sponsors, and I was going past there and I almost went, but then I thought it was probably going to be a bit lame, so I didn't. I went on to Mahon and the Balearics, but a friend of mine went, and this is the guy I want to talk about. So this, and forgive me for this, Craig, but I'm going to dox you now. So the friend of mine is this guy called Craig. He's got no arms. Well, he's got one arm and no legs.
This sounds like a joke. What's his name?
Craig Wood.
Craig Word. Okay, and he's got one arm and no legs.
Yeah, and he's a sailor. He was a squatty in the.
I'm sorry. Is this real? I mean, come on.
It is real. I joke with him that he sails single-handedly, and I joke that he's the only single-handed sailor that I know. It's like a standing joke.
Is it his right hand or his left hand?
Oh shit! Don't even ask that. When he was blown up, right? He was blown up in Afghanistan as a squatty. And on his very first mission in Afghanistan, he got blown up. But here's the thing: he lost both his legs, and then basically he lost his left arm. They basically told him, "Hey, we grafted your big toe as your thumb on your right hand, and good news, we managed to save your right arm." And he said, "That's great, but I'm left-handed.
Oh shit.
So anyway, so now I was gonna go across the Atlantic with Craig and the flotilla on my boat, but it didn't work out. I got left behind, and the crew I had, put together and stuff fell apart. But Craig went on, and last year. And the reason why I want to mention is because it's the most fantastic story known to man. He just left Port Stanley, I think yesterday, the Falkland Islands, and he's about to round South America, the Cape Horn.
What?
Yeah, he's probably today.
Alone?
Alone, yeah.
No, wait a minute. No, we were going to start talking about Greta, and you blown me away by this story. I feel like a piece of shit laughing about him. I feel really bad.
But there are two things that I want to mention about Craig. And that goes back to the thing, we spoke a lot about the Queen and stuff on the last one. And it kind of goes back to that. And so, Craig, if you watch this, you got to forgive me for this too. But I'm going to say it. So anyway, this, I've always kind of thought that what Craig is doing is a kind of suicide. He won't vlog what he's doing. He doesn't want to be famous. And so he's going the wrong way around both Americas. That's his...
He sounds like Lieutenant Dan, like a real-life Lieutenant Dan.
He is.
You know what I mean?
He's a fantastic guy.
I mean, that's incredible.
Yeah.
And nobody knows who this guy is.
No, and he doesn't want to be doxxed, but I don't give a rat's ass. I want to dox him. And part of the reason why I want to dox him is because I always thought he's doing a kind of a suicide, and I want him to get known, and don't want him to commit suicide.
He's still got a lot of story left to tell.
Yeah.
Just like Lieutenant Dan, he's got a bigger story to tell.
Yeah.
He just doesn't see it yet.
Yeah. So anyway, you can track him. His boat is called the Sirius, and you'll know from the Sirius Institute.
What?
Yeah. And so... What's
going on, Hugh? You got to tell me this story.
Yeah. So anyway, I just have to mention it because as we speak, he's heading for Cape Horn. And if he rounds Cape Horn, it'll be a tremendous story. He'll be going up the West Coast, and I think he should be famous. So anyway,
wow.
The way it connects with Le Vagabond is I would also like to bury Riley a bit, because I don't have any love for that character. I've never actually met him, but Craig met him. And Craig, there's actually a Le Vagabond video where Craig and his crew of two girls, they actually went on Le Vagabond because Craig actually went to Grand Mott for the big splash when they launched the Outre-mer.
So Craig was there. You missed it, but he was there.
Yeah, Craig went. I didn't. And so
okay, Craig was there.
Yeah, but Riley's always an opportunist. So just like with Greta, Riley said, you tried to, get YouTube exposure and stuff by offering to take Greta across the North Atlantic. He's always got an eye for opportunity. He's a big opportunist. And so Craig told me the story that he said when he was there in Outre-mer at the big splash party, then, Riley, this is a guy who's sitting there. He's got two pegged legs and one arm, an artificial arm. He's sitting at the bar. He just gets a drink, right, placed on the table, gin and tonic placed in front of him. Riley walks up to Craig and he grabs the drink and just downs it, looks Craig, slams it on the table and looks Craig in the eye, said, "What are you going to say about that, eh?" Because Riley's the big man at the thing.
Did he use his? Can he still flip people off? Can Craig flip people off?
No, but this is Craig. Craig did.
Can Craig go like this, like thumb flip him or something? I mean, toe.
Yeah, but
he can flip people off with his toe, right?
Craig did a lot better than that. Craig just waited till Riley had a drink, and then he basically hobbled over to him, grabbed his drink, downed it, slammed it in front of him, and said, "There you are, Riley. What do you think about that?" And apparently Riley was absolutely furious. He was...
Oh, what a piece of shit. He didn't laugh. He was a piece of shit.
So let it be known throughout YouTube that Riley is a piece of shit.
He is absolutely an asshole. I've never even heard of this guy until today. All I knew is Greta went across the ocean with the boat.
Well, the boat that they went off is basically, he's used Elena, and now Elena's got a kid, and that baby's in serious danger, if you ask me, because he sails across the North Atlantic in winter just for the publicity, and he's got a...
Oh, is he going to like take the baby and like hang it over the boat and wave at everybody?
We've been sailing around the world for the last 5 years and have recently found ourselves with a stowaway. Meet Lenny.
Something like that. He's capable of it. But anyway, I'd like to say just to everybody on YouTube that he's a despicable character. He's not respected at all in the sailing community, and he's just one of the many people that try to take advantage of people like Craig and Greta.
All right, babe. How nervous are you?
I'm not nervous, I'm just uncomfortable and hungry and cold.
You're not nervous. I'm nervous.
As we got further from land, the weather conditions deteriorated, as did crew morale. It's been the biggest week for us all in leading up to our departure.
Are you seasick, Mama?
I feel rotten.
It's a very serious situation. We need to get south of this horrible band of low that's would gobble up ships bigger than ours. We are in just the biggest electrical storm.
That could be goodbye all electronics.
Yep.
50 plus knot winds and a wave that smashed the chair right off the back deck. We have such a varied group of followers, you guys, so we understand that we're going to have so many different points of view with what we've done. You can probably guess as to mine and Riley's political leanings, but it's been our aim to make these videos so that anyone can watch them.
So
wow. So, I think it sounds like both of them slipped through his fingers, though, right?
Well, no, I mean, I think he's made a big time on Greta. Right.
Yeah, I know, but he's not sticking to her. In other words, she's not influenced by him. He doesn't really have any influence in the real world.
He's just one of the many scumbags along the way.
Yeah, just a piece of shit, right?
Yeah, but there are millions of them. There are millions of these guys that are just trying to cash in on Greta Inc. And and he did a YouTube video. Riley did a YouTube video on Craig, exploiting the fact that he's a single.
Oh, what? He did?
Yeah, you can see it on YouTube. He's got it right there. And so Riley also exploited Craig. Okay, now I want to tell you one more story.
Not cool at all.
Craig.
Not cool.
Here's another not cool story about Craig. You remember we spoke about the Queen?
Yeah.
Okay, now Craig's going to kill me for this, but I don't care.
Well, he wants to kill himself anyway, so you might as well just.
No, he's going to kill me.
Oh.
So this story is about Prince Charles. So when Craig, this is the apocalypse now. It's time for a bit of truth. I've said all along.
I absolutely agree. We got to tell the truth, man.
Yeah, I'm
Taylor Swift is telling the truth. Mitt Romney is telling the truth.
Yeah, it's
tell
time.
The truth,
it's
man.
time for the fucking truth, and
absolutely. Me too. Let's do this. Tell the fucking truth. The
comes off, man. I'm telling my story, and I'm naming names. I'm kicking asses, and I got a long list of asses to kick, and so I'm might as well start with a few of these. So. Yeah, I did a bit of slamming of the Queen and stuff like that. And here's a bit of slamming for Prince Charles. So when Craig was, after he was blown up in Afghanistan, he was, lying in hospital. He got septicemia because when, Craig's last memory after the explosion was just this, this guy running towards him to help him. But he got blasted, so there was a lot of plastic, and I think in those IEDs they put a lot of shit in them, and I mean literally human feces, and
they're meant to fuck you up.
Yeah, and bits of plastic and stuff like that to basically cause septicemia, and that's what happened. So Craig, he was a miracle that he's still alive. But while he was lying in hospital, then he was in a coma for months, and then he. Prince Charles came round, you know, to the ward because, you know, it's a military hospital, and
Yeah.
He brings a case of these bottles of scotch that are bottled on the Balmoral estate. I think it's Balmoral. Yeah. And then anyway, it's, you know, got a label with, you know, Balmoral whiskey, and he gives them out to all the wounded squaddies and soldiers and stuff. And then he gets to Craig and he says, what about this guy? He's in kind of bad shape. And so the doctors say, yeah, it's going to be hit and miss. He's got septicemia, he's in a coma. We think we're going to lose him. And so Prince Charles said, well, then he won't be needing this bottle of whiskey then, will he? I'll keep it. He said, just send me an email if he manages to pull through.
What?
Yeah.
Like in front of the staff, in front of everybody else.
Everybody, yeah.
What an awesome leader he is.
Yeah, this is the crown.
Leader he is.
This is king and country. This is the fucking crown that Craig lost his fucking legs and arm for, was this guy. This is the fucking Union Jack, and this is the royals that basically he was fighting in Afghanistan for.
The truth is, for a few to be immortal, many must die.
So who do we lay this on? Is this the patriarchy's
This is
fault,
the
or is
royals.
this the matriarchy?
This is the royals. This is the royal family. This is the bastards that have.
This is the main owners of British Petroleum.
And, this is the people that XR won't name and shame. So yeah, when basically many times when we were wintering here in Greece, then you know, we'd get drunk and stuff with Craig, and he would eventually Craig got better, right? And against all odds survived and got out of hospital. And then they sent a letter to Prince Charles and said, hey, that guy actually survived. So they sent him the whiskey. They finally sent him the whiskey.
Oh, okay. So he gets a pass. He got the whiskey.
Well, no, he doesn't really get a pass. The fact was that he's basically, you know how rich these guys are, and he can't even spare a bottle of Scotch whiskey for the guy lying there in
It's the principle. It's like in your last video with George. It's really not about the bottle of whiskey. It's the principle. It's
the principle that he couldn't spare a bottle of whiskey on a squatty because he thought the guy wouldn't survive.
Right.
And then many times when we were wintering, then we'd get drunk, and then Craig would say, you know, this is the night. Let's open that bottle of whiskey. And he didn't mean open it to drink. He meant open it to pour it in the fucking water.
Flush it down.
Yeah. Just chuck it in and make it a sacrifice to Poseidon. These are the fucking psychopaths that fucking rule us. Okay. So I wanted to say that. No.
Well, you know, you need to send this to Craig. You need to send this to Craig. Send this to Craig. Maybe this video is just for him.
I don't think
he deserves it.
I don't think he's in contact at the moment. I've sent a few.
But if he makes it, send this to him.
Yeah. But anyway, I hope that it might get out there, and then maybe when he makes it up the West Coast, then maybe he'll be famous by the time he gets to California. And so anyway, that's great. So I just wanted to mention it because of, you know, these people, this engine that trying to exploit people like Greta and Craig. So the thing is, they're all part of the machine, and the question is, what's Greta's future? Is she going to rebel against this machine? I hope she is, and I think the best way to look at it is to look at it from the point of view of Metropolis, so you can see exactly what we're talking about, because it's so tailor-made for what we're talking about. Did you watch?
And you really feel like it's something for our times, right? You feel like this is something really important. Did you notice that last week she announced that she's going to get her own program, a mini series on the BBC?
Yeah. But again,
it's going to be kind of a biopic.
It's basically the BBC just exploiting the Greta story, you know.
Right. So this is important. So can you kind of step us through the Metropolis story and kind of the background of it? Yeah. So just before we go there, one more thing I wanted to say about the last video was you remember that we talked about the Senex
the wise old man and the Jungian archetype of the young girl.
Right. David Attenborough potentially as being someone that would like hand the baton to her, sort of like old father time to the baby time, right? That kind of metaphor. He's like handing off the authority. This is Merlin helping King Arthur, right?
No, not King Arthur. It's really a Joan of Arc.
No, the wizard, the Merlin, the older man with the beard, the white hair. Maybe he shaved his beard. He just has white hair.
Maybe it is King Arthur if you think of King Arthur as the little boy that pulls.
That's what I mean. That's what I mean. The older man passing off, sort of his authority to the younger person.
No.
We see this in a lot of stories.
No, you missed that bit in the last one.
I did miss it. So let's go through that again.
They had to make it passing on. You see, what the thing in the BBC was doing was trying to make it that they're passing on authority. So it's
right.
But that's not the archetype. The archetype is they're hooking up with each other. They're getting in cahoots.
Oh, it's the collusion. He's going to say, hey, let me whisper in your ear. That's what you said. Let me help you. Let me guide you.
Yeah.
Right. Rather than here, you're the authority and I'm going to go away and die. It's more like,
that's what I was saying.
Let me mentor you.
They were kind of chaperoned so that it was
controlled. It was very controlled. Very controlled.
But it's a handover. It's not a collaboration. We must keep these two separate because if they get together, it's like nitrogen and glycerine, and that is going to be fatal for the Metropolis.
Right.
So that was the important thing. So, but while I was editing that, you mentioned you saw her doing this kind of same thing with Arnold Schwarzenegger.
Yeah.
And
Arnie.
Yeah, but while I was editing it, I realized that it was exactly the same trope again. You had this chaperone woman, but now it was in Austria. And to me, it struck me that it's kind of like, speed dating for Gen Xers. Is that
right?
It's kind of like
and Michael Moore.
Yeah, in the same way, it's kind of like people want to put the archetype together, but don't. And then, but it's sort of like Britain. It's almost like the Eurovision Song Contest for Blind Date for Greta. Find Greta's Senex almost, and then it's like Britain's contender is David Attenborough, and then it's like wait for Oswald. We want Arnie. Arnie's our Senex. It's Arnie, and she's like, and then she sits down with Arnie, and it's the same deal. It's the same kind of questions, and the same thing is like, will you be meeting Arnie again? Will you be hooking up? Yeah, and then but the funniest thing known to man was what I missed before, and I should have put in there, was a pan to Greta's face while Arnie's talking, because it was such a disaster as basically a blind date. Arnie's sitting there saying all this complete twaddle about how, he tells his kids we must switch the lights off when you leave the room and stuff like that, and that forget about collapse. It was just pure collapse denialism. And while he's going on this little monologue about, how we must think about getting a 4-cylinder car, and, instead of a 6-cylinder car, as if, that's all it's going to take to, skirt the methane dragon. We just make sure we switch the lights off. And, but you should have seen Greta's face when she did it. Basically, if you pan in on that, and you just see that, like,
your heating system and everything during the day while you're gone. Just go on the phone and you just dial it in and you can turn off heat. So there's many new technologies that are available today, to live more efficient, more energy efficient.
This date isn't going very well.
No, not at all. No, she's got this all figured out. She reads body language better than anybody.
Yeah,
and she knows when they're bullshitting her.
So she can see through all the bullshit, right? She can see through
the bullshit.
Guys that are trying to exploit her, and then it's like, but is she gonna bite the hand that feeds her? And then if she does it, does she have a critical mass? I mean, as soon as she says something that's out of line, say anti-capitalist, anti the system, deindustrialization, anything like that, that's seriously off message for her controllers. And the question is, if she does that, I mean, she's going to have to do that at some stage, because
didn't she already do that?
None of this stuff, all this greenwash is bullshit, right?
But didn't she already do that when she said we need zero emissions now, not zero net, but zero emissions? That's off message for those guys, isn't
talk, but
Yeah.
it's still not going all the way. You know,
They laughed her off the stage.
Yeah, but that's the thing is, you know, can she lead a children's crusade to ensure that? So because she's an archetype, and she's you know, basically this puer aeternus, this youthful figure, youthful god actually in some ways. She hasn't got many more years left. I think she's got about a couple more years when she's too long in the tooth to be Joan of Arc. It's very important, the idea of purity, and you know, if she gets too much older, she will lose that kind of pure aura, and
she might also just get sick of it.
Yeah.
I can see her getting just sick of it, just sick of all the attention, all the bullshit. I mean, the stuff they say, and they misinterpret what she says, and she's had to get a trademark because people are using her brand all over the place. I mean, we're talking about her. You know, this isn't flattering to Greta either, probably. I mean, you know, she's getting a lot of bullshit. She might just say, you know what, I just want to live my life. She might just get sick of it. You know, at some point, Rain Man just wants to go back to back to his own life, you know?
No, I doubt that. Because for one thing, I think climate activism has kind of saved her. If you look at the book, I didn't actually read that book, but about her autism, I think she and her parents have said that climate activism really saved her. She couldn't actually, I think, eat outside of the home.
She couldn't even process what was going on because she understands the news, and how does she process it without action? She was compelled to action.
I don't think she would ever say I've had enough and duck
out. But if she realizes what she's doing is causing more harm than good, let's say she realizes, you know what, you guys have gotten out of control with this whole thing. You've gone ape shit over this Greta thing, and you're not even listening to me. I mean, there's this frustration point, right? Maybe we'll see that in Metropolis. The story sort of unfolds, right? I mean, as this Greta thing phenomenon gets bigger and bigger, you know, it's like, what the hell? It can get out of control. It can get crazy. It can get stupid, you know, and she's going to cut through that bullshit at every step, right?
Well, it
already is. I mean, she's not the Terminator. I mean,
it's basically, you get, you know, I mean, on the round of fame and is really a whirlwind. It's kind of tornado.
Machio, man. It's Machio. It's bad news.
It's just riddled with bad news. It's basically the worst psychology of everybody just pours out, famous people. Yeah.
And so poor Greta. I mean, so how does this apply to Metropolis? What are the insights we get from Metropolis? That was a great backgrounder.
Well, that's the thing, is that she's one of two people in Greta. So Greta is one of two of the main characters in Metropolis, and both of them are called Maria. So I think, did you watch the movie? Did you get a chance to watch it?
I haven't watched it recently. I saw the one that from the 80s, the silent version.
This is Fritz Lang's.
You got the full version, okay?
One, yeah.
Yeah, well, this was black and white, but it was silent, but it had like 80s music in it, Freddie Mercury and Giorgio Moroder and stuff from the 80s. I don't know if you ever saw it. It's pretty cool.
Never saw that.
It's awesome. It's awesome. It's the silent movie. You get the words, but you got the cool pop music from the 80s. But anyway, so the basic story is it's called Metropolis, which means city.
Well, okay, let's...
It's a mega city, right? This is like Coruscant in Star Wars. This is like the...
Yeah, it's a good...
Right? This is the mega city.
Good straight man. Yeah, I'll tell you what Metropolis means. So it's always very important, especially if you're trying to go in deeper into these kind of things like we normally try and do, is to look at the etymology of these things. Right. And now one of the themes that we explored, and I've already been called a misogynist for this, which is a kind of is unfortunate, because the last thing I wanted to be is a misogynist. But I was saying that really the power behind the throne is actually a woman. So, although remember we're exploring all that about the patriarchy, and the hidden power behind the throne is actually a matriarch. So just officially, you're declaring the British crown a matriarchy. You're saying that Great Britain is controlled by a matriarchy. It's just ridiculous that all this patriarchal shit.
There's no patriarchy in Great Britain. It is matriarchy with a slave patriarchy underneath it. But the queen rules that country.
Women rule that country. Women rule Britain.
So it's the queen, it's Gail, it's women all the way down.
All the way down.
The housewives.
Yeah, it is a full-on matriarchy. Any British household is, you'll struggle to find a British household run by a male.
Okay, so you're just calling that, we're not going to talk about it, we're going to declare it a matriarchy. So is Metropolis a matriarchy?
Well, this is where it gets interesting really fast. Let me first tell you what Metropolis means, the etymology. So, okay. It's 2 words, Greek. The first word is, well, let's take polis first. What does polis mean?
Polis and metro.
What does polis mean?
Polis. Polar?
Think of poll tax,
government?
Close, it means city. Polis.
Oh, okay. City. I thought metro meant city.
Ah, now it gets interesting.
I thought it was like I thought Metropolis meant city, like a mega city mega.
No. Everybody thinks that.
City?
This is where it gets truly interesting. We're talking about the woman hiding behind civilization.
So polis is city. So what is metro?
So metro, it's actually meta. It's actually the Greek word meter, M-E-T-E-R, meta. It's the same as M-A-T-E-R, martyr.
Martyr.
Mother.
Mother city?
Yeah, Metropolis
matriarchy?
Means mother.
Matriarchy.
Yeah, Metropolis means mother city.
And matriarchy means like, so Metropolis means matriarchy?
Matriarchy means rule, and mater means mother. So it's basically, it means maternal rule, matriarchy.
Matriarchy is maternal rule.
Yeah,
Metropolis is
actually the word for is meta, and that's mother. So it's mother city. How about that?
So when you go in the metro, you're going into the mother.
Yeah, because it's basically metropolitan tube, but metropolitan means mother city. So yeah,
Metropolis, metropolitan, all of that is so it's literally like mother city.
Yeah. Now it's important because the whole of civilization is based on civitas, the city.
The city.
Yeah, and so civilization is just another word for city, and the city-state, the thing around our neck, the monarchy, the church and state, the Queen, Prince Charles, all of that, and her church are the state, the civitas. And so it goes all the way back
society.
to civil society, and civil disobedience means disobedience against the Queen. Roger's about to be brought down in Isleworth Crown Court, and he's going to be charged with being a nuisance, basically a civil nuisance, which is a form of civil disobedience. It means obedience against the civitas, against the city. So he's really rebelling against civilization. That's the
city. He's annoying the city.
Ultimately, what he's doing. And the whole question is: will Greta rebel against civitas and civilization? So
wow, Hugh, that's huge.
Yeah,
that's a huge concept. That's awesome.
Yeah, because the power behind the throne is woman. The reason why we have civilization, and the whole reason why I wouldn't bother to go into this territory where people are just going to say, "Oh, he's a misogynist," and it's not worth the time or energy for me to go here. The only reason why I'm going here is because I fundamentally believe that we cannot deindustrialize, and we cannot get rid of civilization, which is what we need to do if we want to not go extinct. We won't be able to do that unless women permit it. We have civilization. It's basically the women that are keeping it there, and we'll only be able to give up civilization and deindustrialize if the women permit it. That's the only reason why I'd cover this in a video. I'm not interested in gender relations or anything.
Yeah, we're not going, because we hate the patriarchy. Can we hate on the patriarchy just for a second, so people don't think you're like you're mansplaining or anything bullshit, red pill crap? You're not there either, right? Fuck the patriarchy, right?
Yeah,
Can you just say that?
Well then, okay,
say fuck the patriarchy.
But we can't escape the fact that you have to dive back into the power behind the throne, because the patriarchy, for the most part, is a front, and you can see this straight off in Metropolis. So the patriarch in Metropolis is this guy called Fritz Lang. He's the guy that designed the Metropolis. He's the tyrant ruler of the Metropolis.
Why did he do it?
Now that's getting freaking interesting.
To get laid. I'll bet he did it to get laid.
He did.
See, there you go. There you go. I would build a city to get laid. Wouldn't you build a city to get laid?
We all did. We all did, according to James Brown.
If that's where the women are, that's where we're going. Right?
Okay, so this is where the first Maria was. So Maria was the woman he built the city for.
Okay.
So the way it works is Fridson, and let's just call him, Fridison's too difficult. Let's just call him like Jeff Bezos or something, because he's
Jeff Bezos. Jeff Bezos.
Jeff Bezos.
Call him Jeff.
Yeah, it's Jeff Bezos, and he made the Metropolis. He made like Amazon, or this whole global industrial society. He represents the guy that did it. And in the movie Metropolis, he did it for this woman, his wife, who's dead. In Metropolis, she's called Hel, H-E-L. I'm not really sure if Stanley Kubrick's Hal, H-A-L, in 2001 A Space Odyssey is a reference to her, but it could be. There is a rumor that Hal in 2001 comes from IBM, International Business Machines. It's just one letter on in the acronym.
Whoa.
Now,
Corpse Bride? Wow.
Oh, wait for it. It's even worse than the Corpse Bride. So she's dead, but he's running the Metropolis. He has, I don't know whether it's a brother or something. He has some kind of rival who's an engineer. He's basically the mad scientist. And he's lost a hand. He lost a hand creating this machine out of, he's Dr. Frankenstein. So, and a very important part early in the movie was Fridson Jeff Bezos goes to this inventor guy who one assumes is the engineer that designed Metropolis. So Jeff Bezos is the guy that runs it. Then this scientist guy is called Ropvang. He's actually Dr. Strangelove. Kubrick studied Metropolis, and
oh, really?
Yes, and the saluting character with the false arm that he can't control.
With the spirit of bold curiosity for the adventure ahead.
It's the same Ropvang scientist that.
So what? Let's give him a name. What do we want to call this guy?
But wait. This scientist guy, it's not really terribly obvious in the Metropolis, but what he did was he did a Frankenstein on Maria.
So he did Ex Machina. He made a robot, a female robot?
More than that, he made a cyborg out of it. So it's kind of glossed over in the movie, but what Maria's dead. He got hold of Maria's corpse. Now he says to Friedrichsen that, you got a son, which is, this young Friedrichsen. And then he said, you got a son from Maria. They both loved Maria, right? They built the Metropolis for her.
Yeah.
And then the Rotwang character, the mad scientist, says, you got the son, so therefore I got her body. And he reanimates her body, just like...
You mean brings her back to life?
Yeah, he brings her back to life. Now, it seems like we're getting very deep into a complicated movie. So let's just back off a bit. And if people haven't actually seen the movie, it's very, let's just give a little overview so that we don't lose people. The movie is very easy to put in a nutshell. Really, it's kind of simple. It's the rich are up, the poor are down, freaking terrible social relations and class war going on. And the moral of the movie, okay, spoilers all over, it's a 1927 movie, I'm not exactly going to hold short on spoilers, but the movie resolves itself, and the whole message of the movie is, in the final scene, the head, which is, the alien cortex, Friedrichsen, Wolf,
Jeff Bezos,
yeah. The head and the hand, which is all the workers, the downtrodden workers.
Okay, all employees at Amazon.
It says basically is the head and the hand need to be mediated with the heart.
That sounds like HR. That scares the shit out of me. You just said HR.
Yeah, exactly. So it's a lot of anarchists think, and me included, think this is one of the worst movies of all time, with one of the worst messages of all time, because what it's saying is we keep the Metropolis. The Metropolis is good, and really the key to labor relationship is basically you don't get rid of the labor camp, you don't get rid of the plantation, you don't burn it to the ground. You just basically, the key to making it all work is if the slave owner or the plantation owner and the slaves are decent to each other. And I think that's
they get along. They figure out how to get along.
You could possibly give humanity. And I
that's
think
horrific.
A lot of anarchists think the same. It's just an awful, awful message.
Can't we just get along? Let's just call HR. HR will figure it out for us.
Yeah. So we don't get rid of the slave system. We don't get rid of the plantation. It's kind of like, imagine that Lincoln said, we don't need to fight the Civil War. No one needs to get hurt here. We just basically have a little police force that goes around making sure that the plantation owners aren't too mean to their slaves. We'll just
get some therapy and meditation and get some slavery meditation going.
Yeah, right? Exactly. Just
teach them yoga. Teach them yoga.
We'll cover all this over. The South can keep their slaves, but we'll just do a little bill that says, you must give the slaves at least one bowl of rice a day. And if you whip them, they have the ability to appeal to, a magistrate in triplicate about their treatment, And then what the hell? We don't need a civil war.
Just establish HR. Just have HR between the slaves and the slave owners, right?
Yeah.
I mean, HR is a good place for that. I hate dashing the HR, but I can't stand HR.
Yeah, the 13th Amendment is not necessary. You just have to basically have this nice, kind of agreeable, feminine thing where we all don't name and shame. We just get along, and then the plantation is fine. Okay.
I've seen the same thing with
the movie.
I've seen the same thing with the new fetish for that Downton Abbey thing. There's this television series that's been going on for years, the Downton Abbey, where it's like Victorian England fetishized. And everyone has their place
we
in the mansion house, and those poor rich people have to suffer, and they have to hide their affairs. Oh no! And then the poor people are like having to totally obey. It's that whole Victorian thing, Downton Abbey, the mansion house. That's like mini Metropolis, right?
Oh, that is you see, the
it's
whole
a model
point
of a
hierarchy like that is they nestable.
So and the woman runs that house, right? At the top of that Downton Abbey is the woman.
Look at Downton Abbey. They have that old bitchy matriarch, and
that's the matriarchy.
That's how matriarchy works. And then you've got to be really simple-minded to say, well, Downton Abbey is a patriarchy because you have the lord of the manor who's obviously in charge, and so like, really. Is that how shallow your analysis is? The old dowager in the thing who basically says to it's her son. She goes there and she just walks into a room and the son's already, basically lick spittle on the floor.
The modern day equivalent to me is who in the household controls the remote control, right? In a family, the family sits down and they're going to use the TV. Who's got the remote control in the house? The man does, right? It's a patriarchy, right? Wrong. Because if he flips the dial and she says, change the channel, he freaking changes the channel.
Yeah, and if she doesn't, if he doesn't, then she'll invoke the children. So she'll say, no, you can't watch this, think of the kids or something. It's always going to bring the kids into it. So
and that's a sort of a good thing. It's sort of a good thing, but we just need to call it what it is. That's civilization. That's the city concept in the home, scaled up to Downton Abbey and then scaled up to a city, then a city state. And now the whole world is Golgotha Teki. The whole world is Metropolis.
Golgotha Teki. So it's
the whole world is a fucking city now, right?
It's a domus.
It's Coruscant.
Yeah, it's a domus. So it's the house, and basically it comes from the word quell or dwell. It's the same root as culture, and it means basically being orbit around.
So, and cult.
And cults,
culture, cult.
Yeah, because cults are in orbit around one charismatic figure, and a household is in orbit about one charismatic figure, and that's a woman. She has protection by putting a false front of a patriarch out there, so she doesn't have to deal with a hoi polloi. But she's like the dowager in Downton Abbey. She's in charge of the whole house. The whole house in Downton Abbey is in orbit around the dowager, the old dowager there.
Okay, now you might be describing these structures, these city structures, house, mansion, city state. That sounds really great in terms of wealth, but my blood pressure starts to raise when you say stuff like that, because I know women that are single mothers with children and their husbands are total assholes. Women really have it bad in places in society. So,
well, this is where you see this is why
this is where it gets really complicated and people's blood pressure goes up.
An appeal to women is
right.
because it's a raw bargain, and kind of what I would like to convince women of, and men too, is that it doesn't pan out. So women think they're getting a good bargain out of this, but they're not. And it's exemplified with exactly the kind of thing that you mentioned.
Yeah.
It's basically women have been trapped in it, and it doesn't pay. So in other words, take for example the polis and the polis force or the police force, right? Now, women, it's an anarchic tradition to not have a police force, to get rid of that kind of authoritarianism and control. There's a problem even within anarchy, is that women want a bit of muscle on the side. If a man beats them in the home to prevent rape, if a man runs amok with the children, then the house has to be a safe environment. A woman feels the need to have a call out to some higher authority so she can basically crush the guy.
On the fire department hotline in case I get in trouble later.
So that keeps things like police forces in place. Now, that sounds exemplary, except when you look at it closer, then you can see the men in a double bind. A lot of the reason why you're getting all these social dysfunctions, everything from substance abuses to alcoholism, is because the whole system and the police force is putting pressure on a man. And what the pressure is a double bind, is that it's a lose-lose situation for him, and then men react with their fists in that kind of double bind situation. And so the whole system is set up to really as a nest for protection. But as the city has grown, it's become the very opposite. It's like, if you look at today, look at the security forces, look at the military. All of those things are, look at the police. They have on the car, on the panda wagons and stuff, on the black and whites, they have, to protect and serve. And it's like, who they're protecting and serving? They're protecting property rights, and they're serving the rich. They're serving those with property. Now, that all came out of this nexus of just trying to keep the home safe. And the biggest threat now is the police. In Katrina, the police left quickly when the hurricane came in, because they saw that they couldn't keep control, and they thought that there was going to be retribution, and they were probably right, because they were probably one of the most corrupt police forces in America. So they all headed out very quickly, got in their cars and made a run for it, because they thought that they would be score settling, and they had a long rap sheet, those guys. But they built that rap sheet up on this fake legitimacy that's basically saying that they're there for protection, they're there for the domus. So the problem is, if women outsource their protection to a police force, and then to the military, then to big government, eventually you get Green New Deals, you get this big social hierarchy, then it becomes a big nanny state. And the price of that is way too high. You're getting shortchanged on that. Eventually, the nanny state becomes more of a threat to the domus. Eventually, you're sending people out into Afghanistan like Craig that come back as victims.
Right. This all goes back to someone like Craig, and the system just ends up crushing everyone, both men and women. This is not about patriarchy or matriarchy. The system itself ends up being repressive, and as the cities become bigger and bigger and become city-states and governments, and this megatropolis thing we've created, this whole planet.
Yeah, if you outsource protection basically you're outsourcing protection to the mafia, and the mafias are going to abuse it. Eventually, they are using you, your domus, and the family to protect them in their operation. And they're not providing you hardly any service at all in terms of domestic protection. You just go and have a look at the statistics on domestic protection by police. It's very, very, very poor. So women would die, if you said, we need to defund and disband the police force before collapse comes. Women would be like, no, we need the protection. And say, look at the statistics. The women are being shortchanged by the police force.
Yeah, and obviously men are too, and different races and creeds and all that stuff.
It gets worse as you get closer to the bottom. So by the time you get to ethnic minorities, it's expanded 100 times more. But it still exists all the way up. It's not like, white people get a free pass, and it's a sliding scale. So that
it sucks for everybody. It visible
sucks for
everybody.
Go down. Yeah, as you get
and then it ends up
to black people, then they have no illusions about this. I think in some communities, and certainly in poorer communities, you don't call the police. Basically, the police are going to cause you more trouble. If you go to Mexico, I've heard lots of people in Mexico. A guy was just telling me, I was on a bus in Mexico. The mafia come around, the bus stops. These gang members come. They raid the bus, take everybody's wallets. And then the bus driver turns around and says, after they've gone, says to the people on the bus, should I call the police now? And they're like, no. I mean, the gang is bad enough. The last thing we need is the police. They're 100 times worse.
Right,
and that's where it eventually gets to, yeah.
It just gets worse and worse.
Yeah. So the thing is that we can only get rid of this, basically these guys that have taken over and turned us into a plantation, if women will allow it and will basically take on risk. A lot of the things that I'm saying is that the domus and the metropolis is false security.
Right.
If you just look at the statistics, we're being shortchanged. And so the thing about anti-civ and deindustrialization, it means taking on risk. But you're better off taking on risk. If you see, the reason why women preferred the domus is because there was less risk to particularly things like babies and, basically less risk to the nest, as opposed to saying being nomadic or being out in the rainforest.
Yeah.
The problem is that once you start, it doesn't actually hold water. It's a false security blanket, because you start getting all the zoonotic diseases, the domesticated animals. You start all these things like the swine flu and this.
It ends up with Maya corona, right?
They're all cross-species diseases, and the reason they're crossing the species is because we're keeping these things as domestic animals, particularly
in close quarters.
Basically, swine and poultry are great vectors. Basically, all these bad diseases, including coronavirus, probably didn't come from a pangolin. They originally come from birds one way or another. We're too far distant genetically from birds to get diseases, but pigs are closer, and they're a great intermediate stage to get to us. Now, all of this comes with domesticity. All the animals we domesticated greatly increased. All the diseases now that we know of that plague us, from measles to the pox to everything, they're all diseases of civilization that were unknown before Göbekli.
They're diseases of the city. They're actually symptoms of the city state. They one and the same. If you do this city thing, and with close quarters with these animals, eventually we're going to have these cross diseases. I mean, that wasn't the way it was supposed to be. Cities are like not the way to be, right? I mean, that's...
Yeah, the densities are too high. People are not supposed to live in those kind of densities. And then
in boxes.
Yeah, once you have like 6,000 people on an island, measles can propagate indefinitely and things like that. So
wow, chronic disease.
Yeah, so it was a raw deal all the way from the start. It's just nobody stops and quantifies it, because we kind of, nobody will go against the matriarch and say, not the emperor has no clothes, but the matriarch is wrong about civilization in the city, and nobody's prepared.
The queen has no clothes. She's the primary owner of British Petroleum, and they're not slowing down.
Yeah, she's got
something going on there. Something weird.
Yeah, I mean, so in the Queen's speech, she gave a tiny little mention of climate change and climate change activists. And then it was barely a sentence. And then she launched into this whole thing about the servicemen and doing their patriotic duty and stuff. And it's like, this is crazy talk. All of those guys are causing animosity in the Middle East. They're wounding people like Craig, and they're making us less safe. And so crazy talk. It's just flat out crazy talk.
It is crazy talk. And what happened to Margaret Thatcher? Right, what she said in 1989. What happened to that? In their last video that we did, had that clip from Margaret Thatcher.
That's the Millerway's doctrine. Is we're trapped in civilization because they can't give it up, and they can't
give up civilization. They're going to ride it. They're going to ride it just all the way down like the Titanic, right? The back of the Titanic.
Yeah,
they're going to be the last ones to get wet.
So we'll never get it. That basically the politicians are trapped. You can. So anything you like, any NVDA, any action you like, it doesn't make a blind bit of difference. CAs don't make a blind difference because they're trapped. There's only one thing we can do, and that's deindustrialize. And they cannot deindustrialize. They cannot deindustrialize because of the economy. So where does, there's an interesting word. Ecos and actually ecology that comes is home management. Economics is
so it's economics. What eco is what?
Is the eco is management, I think. Wait.
Management, and then nomics is a home.
Let's do a call out to etymological dictionary here.
Okay.
On the thing. So it's like,
while you're looking that up, I'm going to ask a question. How does this relate to Greta and Metropolis? Let's bring this back around, because I think it's going to flow right into something.
The two Marias, right? So will they go against are they? You see, they have the right as female to go against the machine. A man can't do it.
So the real question for Greta is she going to go with the city or not?
Yes.
When the handlers want her to be pro-city, is she going to stay pro-city?
You're getting ahead of the game here. I just...
okay. Sorry.
Yeah, economics is the art of managing a household, perhaps from French economie, oikonomicus, of domestic economy, from Greece, oikonomos. Oh, you know that's oikos? You know the yogurt, oikos? Do you have that yogurt? Oikos yogurt, Greek yogurt. Do you have that in
Greek yoga? We have Greek yogurt.
Yeah.
Greek yogurt? Yeah.
Called
Greek
oikos.
Yogurt.
Yeah.
Oikos. Yeah, I can get that.
Oikos, it just means household.
Oh, that household yogurt.
Yeah, so oikonomikos, practiced in the management of household or family.
Omics. So omics is science of the home. That's probably what omics means, right? Omics?
I'm not sure, but it's, yeah.
Sounds like, yeah.
It basically means home thrift, right?
Home thrift, home economics, home thrift.
Yeah, when Angela Merkel talked about economics, she would often say, this is simple stuff. Any Swabian household, any Swabian mother knows how to do economics. And she's literally right, because economics is household management.
But as well as the science, we need to get the economics right. That means, first, we must have continued economic growth in order to generate the wealth required to pay for the protection of the environment.
Well, it's the same thing, just scaled up. It's economics all the way up and all the way down to the home. It's right.
Yeah, well, this is the thing: is if you have a hierarchy, and there's a hierarchy in the home, and it's nestable. You can basically integrate it in, say, it's like we talked about a capo system, or I talked about to George. Basically they're nestable. You can have a capo de capo, and you can have
right. It just scales.
Hierarchy of hierarchies of hierarchies,
yeah.
all the way to the bigger hierarchy, and that's
right.
where it comes from.
And that's why it's a Jenga tower, and it falls from the top. The Jenga tower is just going to implode.
Well,
as a system.
It's quite stable.
Well, no, it's either going to implode from the bottom down, and the elites at the top. Think about the 9/11, the towers of 9/11.
Yeah, right? Let's not get into how it implodes.
Well, we're talking about Metropolis. You tell me how it implodes.
Well, this is the thing. It doesn't. Okay, so let's go back to. Okay, so let's go back
to Metropolis and Greta. Metropolis and Greta.
Okay, so Fritz Lang does Metropolis, right? It's all about, guys, we just need to have a bit of heart. The media
to make it work.
Yeah. Okay. And that's the whole message of the movie. Then, the two Marias are a bad Maria that says we need to pull the Metropolis down, evil Maria. And then a good Maria who's all saintly, and she has, Christian crosses behind her. The church always preserves the Metropolis, right?
Oh yeah, the church doesn't exist without the city.
Yeah, exactly. So
it's an artifact of the city. You don't have churches without cities.
Exactly. So Göbekli Tepe is a church. Church actually precedes the city.
Or a mall, a church.
Malls are just similar, but
commercial churches, right?
Yeah, but so this is the second big problem, is that you can only get rid of the Metropolis if you get rid of the church too. Church and state are inextricably bound. And they tried to get rid of them in America, but they couldn't. They didn't even manage to, separate.
They just did a separation of church and state.
Yeah, they even failed on separation of powers. But the guys in America were Freemasons, and they tried their level best to break the church and state, but still hasn't been done. So anyway, you know, here we have XR in their 2020 plan, and they're trying to be inclusive, and they're going out to these Christians and Muslims and these things, stuff, and saying, this is the core of our extinction. These churches, these religions, these are the things propping up industrial civilization. You have to root them out, root and branch. Otherwise, we're going to extinct. This is as simple as that.
Right.
So,
well, they also generate the lies, right? They generate these stories about apocalypse and the end of the world.
They generate
people end up flying planes into buildings.
They generate the heart. Why are they so evil is because Fritz Lang is doing a church thing. In essence, he's doing what the church does. He's saying, look, we all just need to get along and forgive each other, and the lion will lie down with the lamb, and the slave owner can basically be nice to his slaves, and the slaves are obedient, and then it all works, and I make out like a bandit. Why? Because I'm the hidden matriarch. Okay, so you might find it weird that Fritz Lang was, he was actually an atheist, but his mother was Jewish. He said he was brought up as Catholic, and he said he was a very staunch Puritan Catholic, although he was an atheist, which is kind of weird. Yeah. Fritz Lang was a very weird character. Mm-hmm. There's something you need to know straight away about Metropolis is why did Fritz Lang put out this message?
Yeah, why did he? 1927, he said? 28, something like that?
Yeah, so he's basically at a time, now this is in the Weimar Republic. This is where basically there's huge social tension. It's very interesting that it's after the Weimar Republic, it's after the collapse, you know, all the thing where they have you have a wheelbarrow full of Deutschmarks to buy a loaf of bread. You remember all of that?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
It's after that. So it's actually in the time when it's just getting prosperous. Now, this is very weird because the bullshit story we tell ourselves is Hitler rose because of the Depression in 1929 and stuff like that. Yeah. But it's quite a bit more complicated like that. You know, the bullshit history I was taught in school said, like, you know, oh, the Weimar Republic, and we'll never do that again because, you know, the reparations that were extracted from Germany, you know, caused the Reichsmarks in a wheelbarrow,
World War II, right? Yeah,
bread and their stuff, and then that led to Hitler. It's like, well, not so fast. When Metropolis was made in 1927, it was actually a boom time.
Right.
It was very, very much like now. It was a hollow boom. It was basically the people with money were getting rich like bandits. And
Gilded Age. It was a Gilded Age of some kind, right?
It was a Gilded Age. It was all these kind of, you know, these rich billionaires like we have today, and then the rest of the people, the workers, really suffering. So one of the reasons why this is especially evil movie for anarchists is that normally you get some dipshit economist that's completely clueless and doesn't really know what it's like to, you know, be on the bottom of the system. So from his ivory tower, he says, yeah, well, you need a 2% inflation rate because it provides a work incentive, not you know, completely clueless idiots, not knowing that nice little phrase work incentive translates to millions of women getting battered by their husbands that are alcoholic and can't hold down a job, and it means that you have abuse at work and you have Harvey Weinstein's running on. That is all, you know, packed into this work incentive of 2%, which basically those guys bang. But anyway, those guys are clueless. Here's why Metropolis is so evil, because clearly the movie shows an intimate understanding of the abuse of what it's like to be on the bottom. It says it
exposes it. It actually
I understand the whole situation, and they kind of reveal too much. You're saying like, right. It's really evil because it's not like you don't know what it's like below stairs. You know how evil it is. You know the system is rotten, and then you go all the way through to the end to say, but let's not get rid of it. Let's just basically say the medium between the head and the hand is the heart. You know, the workers and the Jeff Bezos it's just like, there's nothing wrong with Amazon. There's nothing wrong with Jeff Bezos. It's just like Jeff Bezos just has to be nice to people. So like,
right. That's and
I've got
HR
a
comes in
different
and
idea.
has that message. Yeah, yeah.
So okay,
Yeah.
so here's the thing. Why did Fritz Lang have that message? Basically, Fritz Lang. Okay, let's just do a little bit more about the Nazis. Fritz Lang was Hitler's favorite director.
What?
Yeah, you can see why.
He knew Hitler?
Because it's a socialist message, right? Hitler's a national socialist, and so it's, you know,
He's a national socialist.
Well, the nation
So
is Metropolis, the city-state, and it's a social message. It's saying, you know, just socialism is you know, it's basically oppression with a smile. So, you know, as long as we're all socialists and we look after one another, then we can keep this brutal system in place, and that's what socialists up and down are.
No, wait, you're saying Hitler started out as a socialist.
Hitler is a socialist. He's a national socialist. Nazis are national socialists.
Is Nazi like national social? Nazi means national socialist.
Yeah, it's a national socialist workers' party. That's what Nazi.
That's what Nazi means. National socialist.
Yeah.
Not fascist.
No, fascist. He's a fascist, but fascism comes from Italy. Mussolini's a fascist. Hitler is a fascist, but fascista. Okay, fascism comes from fascista. Fascista is a bundle of sticks. So,
bundle of sticks.
The Romans were very keen on symbology. Where fascista literally means this bundle of sticks. The Romans had this symbol. They loved the icons and the standards.
Oh yeah, the bundle of sticks, the bundle of arrows.
They were very superstitious, and one of the icons of say a triumph in Rome or you know, the Roman army was the symbolic bundle of sticks with an axe in the middle, and it was bound with leather. And what the fascista is saying, we have a strong man in the middle, that's the axe. And then all the people are the sticks clasped round with leather, bound to the axe. So it's saying
is that a symbol of
people
patriarchy?
are bound to the warlord. Yeah.
Is it a patriarchy? Is that a symbol of patriarchy? Is that a penis?
Yes.
Is that?
Yes.
So there's a penis in the middle, and then all the sticks.
It's the supreme symbol of patriarchy, because the battle axe is like the strong man, and it's saying everybody cleaves to the strong man for his safety, and that's what the fascista represents. So
Hitler's a patriarchal.
No, Mussolini. Mussolini is more of a fascist. So then
he's a patriarch. So fascism is patriarchy.
Yes, it's the purest expression of patriarchy. Yeah.
Okay, so Hitler is just a male Queen of England.
Well, he was a fascist because he liked that kind of Mussolini fascism thing. And so, yeah, he's definitely a fascist because he's trying to be a strong male figure. He's a
trying to be he's trying to establish a patriarchal order.
Yeah,
in a matriarchal world.
Yeah, the giveaway is it's the fatherland. You know, it's not the
fatherland.
You can always tell, because where they say the land is either a mother or a father is a bit of a giveaway. The patriarch
England's the motherland.
The fatherland, you know. Yeah.
Germany's the fatherland and England's the motherland, right? And we got a patriarchy bullshit called World War II.
Yeah, nobody calls Britain the fatherland. It's always, you know.
Oh no, not when the king's around.
Because it's a matriarchy. That's the giveaway. Yeah. So anyway, Hitler, Fritz Lang is Hitler's favorite director. Goebbels actually was going to make Fritz Lang head of the Nazi film industry.
Propaganda.
And Fritz Lang says that as soon as he was made that offer, he legged it to America. But it's kind of ambiguous about that little, lot of airbrushing over that little part of Fritz Lang's history. Now it gets really interesting. So he's a Nazi, let's say, a fascist, Fritz Lang.
Yeah.
He's making this story about the Metropolis and saying it's all about good worker relations, you know.
Right.
Kind of cool from a National Socialist point of view. Hitler would like it. But it still seems a little bit funny. You want to know the secret?
Yeah, let's hear it. We're in end times. Let's hear it.
The secret is that Fritz Lang did not actually make Metropolis.
What?
No. So it was actually done by his wife, Thea von Harbou.
Whoa, his wife made the movie?
Yeah. She
Oh,
wrote
come on.
She wrote it. It was written by Thea von Harbou.
She wrote it.
Does that make a lot of sense to you? It's the matriarchy using Fritz Lang to hide the fact that she's passing this message to preserve the
that we just need to get along. We just need to, if we just have positive, deep adaptation and hug in the park, and we just love each other, and everything's going to be okay. We're gonna, and everyone's going to have a change of heart. We think that those people at the top are going to have a change of heart. The Jeff Bezos and the narcissistic assholes that are doing all this shit. That the Queen herself may have a change of heart. And she's going to come out of Buckingham Palace and have a change of heart, and it's going to save the day. If the Queen or the Tsar, like you were saying on the last video, the Tsar
because in the Weimar Republic, they have a republican government. She's saying that the rich, the slave owners, the owners of the metropolis, the rich buggers, the 1%
are going to be nice.
Yeah, the 1% ought to be nice. So
right. That's the solution
to the workers, and that's the solution. Now, she's saying that at the time of chronic social conflict and revolution, this was the time that Hitler was doing a putsch, and there was masses of rebellion against the system. It was exactly like now the 1918 collapse was pretty much like our 2008. It was really just now. And so
it's very similar. About every 80 to 90 years, you see the cycles repeat themselves.
Yeah.
And they kind of get worse and worse as the civilization gets worse and worse. Every 90 years, it's a worse conflict.
Yeah. But it's the same old story. That's why it's so interesting. But anyway, so Thea von Harbou created it. Now, Thea von Harbou is interesting because she became a full-on Nazi in 1940. She joined the Nazi Party.
Wow. What was her final solution? How did she die? What was her? How did her?
She died.
Did she have second thoughts? Did she regret? Did she like, oops, I screwed up with Metropolis? And what was it in her story? What was her final solution?
No, she went on. I think she died in the 50s. I think. Wait, let me look. In 1954,
did she die of old age?
In 1954, but she
of old age.
Her later life. But she divorced Lang when he legged it off to America. Then she became a Nazi, and then after World War II,
so she survived.
Oh, actually, how about that? I didn't know this. From July to October 1945, Thea von Harbou was held in Stalmabel, a British prison camp. Though many said she had significant Nazi sympathies, Harbou claimed she only joined the Nazi Party to help Indian immigrants in Germany. There again, I did it for the children. Her direct work on behalf of the government consisted, she claimed, entirely of volunteer welding, making hearing aids, and medical care. I was only following orders. In fact, she received a Medal of Merit for saving people in 2 air raids. In prison, she directed a performance of Faust, which is also another iconic thing of the right. And when released, worked as a Trommelfrau, a rubble woman in 1945. Says, she didn't do much after that. But anyway, that was her thing.
Does it say how she died?
She died at the age of 65 in hospital. High blood pressure and stuff. So, but here's the thing. Inside Metropolis, she says why the Metropolis was created. And this is, you remember how I said that really the communism and totalitarian left is really, the mama bear, the nanny state with kind of...
That's what Jordan Peterson says.
Yeah, I agree with him. Yeah, so it's basically the patriarchy and fascism is kind of like a reptilian brain and with a computer strapped to it, and the left is like the mammalian brain with a computer strapped to it, and that's the alien cortex. Now, to show you why I say that and to prove my point here is is to look at the reason why Harbou did this movie.
Yeah.
And what her whole thinking, why the Metropolis was good. And it's pure alien cortex. It's really technerdian. It's really
it's love of technology.
Kind of Star Trek for you but very early on in the movie, she says exactly why the Metropolis was built. Scene setting. Jeff Bezos' son, he's lured underground by the saintly Maria. She, very, very contrived and cunning. She brings all the little children up to the place to see where all the rich folk live in splendor, and says, "Ooh, these are your brothers," and immediately captures the heart of Jeff Bezos' son, Jan Fredrickson, and then he goes and follows her down into the catacombs where she's building up this resistance. So what this movie is also an anti-resistance. This was a time where basically a rebellion was forming, and this is where XR comes in. And that what it's trying to do, what Harbou's trying to do with the movie is trying to circumvent rebellion. It's almost exactly XR's story. They can rebel against the system, or they can be nice, make the system nice. And XR is doing Harbou's dream, which is make the system nice and not tear it down. Now, what I'm hoping is that Greta is the other Maria who's trying to tear the Metropolis down because it's flicking evil. Now, the reason why Harbou says it's not evil, and the justification she gives for it, which says that she, in the catacombs, she gives this kind of sermon to all the downtrodden workers that are basically fomenting rebellion. And she says, I'm going to tell you the story about the Tower of Babel and how, the Metropolis was built. And she says, basically, all the thinking people, all the alien cortexes said, we want to build this tower up to the stars for the glory of God and the glory of man. And then they sat down and they thought, damn, we can't do this ourselves. It's too big a job. So we went and got paid workers to do it. And that's where the management worker came in. It's is all these Jeff Bezoses thought, we'll do SpaceX and get to the stars. But we can't do it alone. Us brainy boxers can't do it alone. We're going to have to get some workers in as paid wages. So Jeff Bezos gets in as paid laborers.
Pharaoh. Same story with Pharaoh. I want to build a
Pharaoh.
pyramid.
It's basically the Pharaoh's going to build a pyramid up to the stars.
He didn't pick up a damn rock. That son of a bitch.
Unfortunately, you guys are going to have to fulfill my dream.
Yeah, the Pharaoh's not going to do a damn thing but watch. He's not building a damn thing.
The truth is, for a few to be immortal, many must die.
He's not building a damn thing. The Pharaoh built the pyramids.
He's going to get strong men to whip the other bastards to fulfill
There you go.
But it's all worthwhile because it's for the alien cortex. But the minds that had conceived of the Tower of Babel, those uber minds, Jeff Bezos, I can only think of putting my Amazon winnings into something like space travel, naturally where you'd go to, who else could think of any good use for billions and billions of dollars, but space travel, of course,
The only way that I can see to deploy this much financial resource is by converting my Amazon winnings into space travel. So that's
the truth is, for a few to be immortal, many must die.
So, but the minds that had conceived the Tower of Babel could not build it. That task was too great. So they hired hands for wages. So when she gets to Babel, it's all shiny and glistening and it's all cool as anything, One man's hymns of praise become other men's curses because, the guys have to go under the whip to build this.
They're miserable.
Thing. Now, what's interesting about Greta Harbou is that her next book, after this, and this is supremely interesting, especially when you think of Bezos and SpaceX and think of an alien cortex riding on a mammalian brain. So the next book she wrote was called The Rocket to the Moon, or basically in German.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it was
Nazis in space. Is that what this was about?
In German, it was Frau und Mond, and what that means, the woman in the moon.
Oh, whoa! So she writes Metropolis, and then the next thing is the woman on the moon.
Yeah, and basically it included a multi-stage rocket. This was advanced stuff. 1928.
Wow.
Yeah.
Multi-stage rocket.
Yeah, but anyway, she wrote herself in Star Trek Going to the Moon.
Well, it sounds like more like Nazis in space, right?
It's kind of like Nazis in space, but she thought of herself as basically going to space, and that's that.
Do you think she might have inspired the Nazis to do the rockets, and maybe even Werner von Braun?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I mean, the Nazis had this whole thing about space travel. I mean, who got us to the moon?
Yes.
Werner von Braun, right? I mean,
yes, but Werner von Braun introduced the multi-stage rocket, but he must have seen this movie because the rocket to the moon, which Fritz Lang made from Thea von Harbou's Frau und Mond, was it was released in 1928 before Werner von Braun, started experimenting with multi-stage.
Right. So she did Metropolis first, right?
Yeah.
She wrote it, and then she did this Woman on the Moon, right? And what's her name again?
Thea von Harbou.
Okay.
Yeah, she's a great blonde Fräulein. She looks exactly like Maria in the movie, so she's kind of writing herself.
Oh wow!
Okay. So, yeah, but in her mind, the whole Metropolis and all its evil and suffering and everything is justified because Jeff Bezos. It's like, what could be more important than going into space? Von Harbou is very, very devious. You remember I was saying all the way along, the alien cortex is all about substitution, inversion and substitution. So this whole thing is an inversion of the truth. It's basically saying, don't destroy what's evil. It's basically, inverting it. And so everything's an inversion. The good Maria is the bad Maria in this one. The one I would hope that Greta would become, the Maria that I hope Greta evolves into, she's evil in the Metropolis. So
she's a monster because she wants to tear down the city.
Yeah, exactly.
She's a monster, but she's actually the good person.
That that a woman wrote it, because she's saying any woman that wants to tear this down is evil.
Right. It's a very seditious
movie.
movie.
Any woman that wants to tear down the Metropolis good. Now she's got the accepted cultural norm of the Maria that's all saintly and has these Christian crosses behind her and all the light on her and everything, and then she wants to preserve the Metropolis, evil as it is. She's somehow the good one. I don't know how she's the good one, because she wants to keep the Tower of Babel going, but von Harbou substitutes it. But again, it's completely upside down. The movie's upside down, and that's what I'm saying is key feature of the alien cortex.
Right. And yeah, and our time feels like just like that now. It feels like everything's flipping upside down. You see in movies and stories, and even in the news, you see like things are just flipping upside down. Yeah. Or just something spinning is just like flipping, like a top just flipping. It just it feels kind of strange,
Well, that's one aspect, and then the other one is substitution. And you can see von Harbou, she's doing this all the time. She's doing these little sneaky substitutions. So, for example, when the workers are down in the catacomb talking to the saintly Maria, then she says, okay, this is all evil and all the workers are being, exploited. And she says, but we're waiting for, obviously, the liberator. But she must have written, we're waiting for the liberator. And she was like, oh, that's a bit subversive. Scratch, scratch, scratch that. And then she says, the mediator. So then liberator becomes the mediator. It's kind of
HR.
Yeah, it's a bit like XR, it's like, we don't want to get rid of the system. We just want to make it regenerative. It's always subverting.
Jem Bendell, adaptation really is normalization all the way down, right?
Yeah, we say we adapt to this, and we're really talking about normalizing
rather than rebel against it. You get to the point where you look at XR and you wonder, it's Extinction Rebellion in the UK. Where's the rebellion?
It's been subverted, so it's become constructive. So rebellion is now constructive. It's like we're not burning the plantation down. Suddenly we're painting
We're
it
gonna make it
green,
work.
extending the plantation house, and it's like, hang on, where's the rebellion? And so then the other substitution she does is at some stage the workers get all pissed off and rise up, and because of the evil Maria comes. So okay, let's just go back to the evil Maria and her genesis. If you remember, she was the Maria that Jeff Bezos and Rotwang, the scientist,
right,
loved. They made the Metropolis for her each in their own way. Rotwang, the Dr. Strangelove character, he reanimated her as Frankenstein. He got her body. Then he kidnapped the good Maria and kind of transposed her so that Bezos and Rotwang agreed they would make a false Maria that would then go and tear down the entire Metropolis and basically stick it to the workers, basically crush them. And so, because they were both worried that the workers were rising, and so they were going to burn the house to the ground, typical alien Cortex style. Greta von Harbou had a quite deep insight into all of these things. In fact, too much insight, which makes her virtually evil. So then Rotwang, the mad scientist, he reanimates Maria as a robotic Maria. Now, the robotic Maria is going to be set against the machine. The Metropolis is all about the machines. It has this machine. So
the system and the machines.
Yeah, and so the reason why they all rebel is because the machine blows up and they, basically being fed like, they're having the fat boiled out of them to serve this machine, just like we are today, to serve the military-industrial complex. That's what it's all about, and that's why they rebel. They encouraged to rebel by this mechanical cyborg Frankenstein reanimation of Maria, which doesn't make a lot of sense, because why would a robot try and overthrow the mother?
Right, destroy. Yeah, robot go after robots.
Yeah, but there's another funny substitution that she does, that when the workers rise up, they say, "Kill the machines." And it's like, kill the machines? I mean, I can just see her writing that, kill the overlord. No, scratch overlord, bit too controversial. Machine sounds better. Kill the machines. Doesn't really work, but better than saying what they really would say.
Right. Don't go after the people, go after the machinery.
Yeah, exactly. See, again, this deviation to save the Metropolis. And this is to a real audience. She's speaking to a real audience in 1927 in Germany. This is not fooling around stuff. This is intense propaganda for a political outcome. So then that was one of them, is like kill the machines. And then there's so many where she does these little weasel deviations, but one of them is she makes the robotic Maria the one that's going to destroy the machine. There's another one where she says, they're going to go after the central machine, and the central machine is called the heart machine, Really?
A heart machine, of course.
Machine. Really?
We know what the heart means, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Know that.
That's the machine that runs the whole of Metropolis. And then guess what?
That's the heart of the metro, right? That's the metro
exactly.
Heart.
So guess what? The workers basically destroy, they do monkey wrench and destroy the heart machine. And for some unknown reason, kind of global warming-ish, the heart machine was keeping the city from getting flooded. So while they're all dancing around celebrating, all the workers, then, the good Maria gets out of captivity and comes and says, "What about your children?" The children, of course. And all the workers go, "Oh, damn, we killed the heart machine, flooded the city, and now our children are at risk. Oh, we're so stupid." And then basically back the saintly Maria goes and saves all the children, always saving the children for them. Those children are going to be put in the machine as basically boiled down for fat in this.
They're just more hands for wages.
Yeah, exactly. But let's gloss over that. She saved them, and stuff. And then, so then the workers saw the error of their ways, and then she comes, and then, the Frida's son is not the liberator, but the mediator. And then she reconciles Jeff Bezos and the head of the workers, who's some simple-minded guy, is and then his name is Grot. And so then Grot and Bezos, they all shake hands nicely, and then see, it all works. You just need a mediator, and then the real mediator in all this between the head and the hand is the heart, and that's the message of the movie. What's really interesting is the mediator. When he, right back in the beginning of the movie, when the manipulative kind of sleazy Christian pure Maria connives to bring all the children up into the upper decks and says, hey, these are your brothers, and then he, Frida's son falls in love with her, he goes down for the first time into the machine and sees what it's like being a worker. He switches lives with one of these worker guys, and then he gets, that's how the audience gets an insight into the evil of the machine. The evil of the machine that he sees is basically when it explodes, he has this vision. He gets knocked out and has this vision that basically it's Moloch. It's Moloch is the devil. It's evil. So
it's Lucifer, Satan.
It's more than that. I must actually show you what Moloch is. Moloch here. Okay, so Moloch is the biblical name of a Canaanite god associated with child sacrifice.
Oh boy.
So it's all about, basically the Metropolis is really child sacrifice.
Now, and let's be clear what child sacrifice actually is. What are children? Children are our future.
Yeah.
Children are the future. We're going to all be dead, and our children are going to be here. The children are the future. So if you give up on children, if you abuse children, you're fucking with your own future and the future of life on the planet.
Yeah.
And so that's what's so horrific about Satan and Lucifer is it's a threat to our absolute future, the future of life on the planet.
Well, anyway, so the name Moloch results from Canaanite, and really the root is Nick, which means king, like Saint Nick. But anyway, I thought you'd really get a kick out of this because there are more than one ways to get a kick out of this. So yeah, this is based on child sacrifice in Carthage as well. And guess what? The inscriptions include the term MLK. So that's the term MLK, which is kind of iconic for.
Right. Can't we just get along?
Extinction Rebellion was one of the names of this Moloch.
The important thing to me is if you go back to Golgotha Teki, which for some reason people buried 3 times over thousands of years, there had to have been this child sacrifice going on, right? Yeah. Lucifer, Satan incarnate.
Yeah, and again, right? it's what I was saying about the Polynesians personifying nature and making sacrifices to.
Right, you never personify nature. Big mistake. It's physics, people. Weather is physics. Okay, there's no such thing as Mother Nature. There is no Gaia.
Here's the next zinger. You get ready for the next zinger.
All right.
So Moloch is actually a Phoenician. When he was a Phoenician god, he's identified with Chronus due to the parallel theme of Chronus devouring his children.
Of course, the clock, yeah.
The clock.
And there's some big time clock in Metropolis as well.
Yeah. When the
There's a
guy's doing
symbology.
useless, busy work.
Yeah, they're just dicking with that clock all day long. It's like they're just going like this with that clock
Thea
all
von
day long.
Harbou is epitomizing. She knows that all the
Chronus
work we're
is
doing
evil.
are bullshit jobs. Everything we do in the service industry to get a buck to support this damn machine that's destroying us and the planet, she knows it's bullshit. She had the guy right there, basically
doing something meaningless work.
He's doing the absolutely most meaningless thing, and he's moving the hands of a clock.
And it's Chronus.
Just so he can get
Monday,
through the
Tuesday,
end of the
Wednesday,
day.
Thursday, Friday.
And his epiphany is that this is just a meat grinder. They're boiling the fat out of our hide for this machine.
And yet the promise is we're going to space. Remember, what about this glorious, wonderful city? We're going to space.
Yeah.
We're going to Mars, man.
Yeah, it's all made worthwhile because it's, the higher ups.
It sounds like a bullshit story that a pharaoh would make up.
It is.
A pharaoh would make up to trick you into building his pyramid for him.
Yeah, so that Moloch has another little angle here, and that was a lot of this comes from H.G. Wells. So H.G. Wells and the Time Machine.
We're going to have to wrap this up fairly quickly.
For real? Not even close?
Not even close.
Hold on now. Hang in there with me.
Yeah, okay.
Can we go like another 5-10 minutes?
What? Time got you again?
I'm running out of time here. My clock's running out. Chronos is catching up with me.
Mention Chronos and then you're out of time.
And suddenly it's like,
that's how the machine works. It basically keeps us running on the clock doing pointless shit so nobody can figure this stuff out.
I'll tell you, I would love to switch my life entirely over to Cryos. And just when we're done, we're done. When we're ready, we're ready. When we like it, we like it, Sunrise, sunset, tide goes in, tide goes out.
Yeah.
But I live in
we live and die under Chronos, and so the question
we do.
Will Greta rise against Chronos and the machine? So anyway, talking of that, H.G. Wells' The Time Machine.
The Time Machine?
It is largely based on H.G. Wells's Time Machine, and if you remember what happened in the Time Machine, the character in the Time Machine, he goes forward to where society winds up. And according to H.G. Wells, it's the Morlocks, the same Moloch in the the machine.
Right, child sacrifice.
So the H.G. Wells didn't like Metropolis. He said it was a silly movie, and H.G. Wells, of course, is an aristocrat, and in the Time Machine, the Eloi are basically the effete kind of liberals. Kind of XR membership.
Right.
They're all like girly boys and kind of diminutive and very soft.
Feminized.
Yeah. And then in the Time Machine, the guy suddenly realizes that the Morlocks are living underground and eating them. They're kind of, Eloi are kind of like children. So in H.G. Wells' thing, he thought the rich are going to get soft in their feet, and all the guys below stairs will come out. So he thought of it the other way around, that the workers will come and pick off the rich folk. But
right. The real menace is the workers. The workers are the danger. The normal folk, they're the big threat and horrible and everything. And meanwhile, the rich people are burning down the rainforest and getting bank bonuses.
Yeah, exactly. It basically he saw it the way an aristocrat sees it, and he saw the rising of the slaves as sinister, which is kind of how Harbou sees it too, but you can see why they kind of clash in their views. But anyway, that's Metropolis, and now the question is, which Maria is Greta? I have to tell you one more thing before we go about Maria.
Okay. All right, shoot.
So the evil Maria, the one that was reanimated from a corpse by the Rottwang character, right? She was an actual person, and she was in Germany, in Berlin, at the time the movie was made. And von Harbou must have hated her bitterly, because she modeled the character, the evil Maria character, which I call the good Maria character. she modeled her on this person. This person is called Josephine Baker. She's an American-born, African-American, who was really a dancer, and she caused a sensation in Germany during that time. A lot of people thought she was evil incarnate, including Greta von Harbou, obviously, not exactly and the Nazis' first choice. Very interesting about Josephine Baker is after being an entertainer in Germany and riling up all the guys and doing all of the stuff she did, she was actually an activist, and she went back to America. She became a famous activist, and when Martin Luther King was shot, she was offered. She was asked to take over the movement. Civil rights movement. And she turned it down because she said, "Nah," because of the kids, which is a polite way of saying, "Thanks, I don't fancy being shot by the state."
So this is a full circle. This whole discussion is a full circle, isn't it?
Yeah, it comes full circle back to who's the good and the bad Maria. Well, the evil Maria von Harbou is our good Maria, and I hope that that's our Greta.
Yeah, we hope our Greta turns her back on the city.
Tears the city down, gets the workers to rise and deindustrialize. But we're not finished even close yet for Greta. There's still,
Let's keep going. There's more to say about her.
Yeah.
A lot going on in the news.
That's enough. We rounded that little circle out nicely, didn't we?
I can't wait to see this video when it's done and you got the clips in.
Yeah, hopefully I can do it justice all the way, but I guess it'll turn a bit out like film school or something, but I think it's so important for our time and to get the message across that women have to let go of civilization. It's not up to men.
Yeah.
We can tear it down, but the women
can't leave it if they stay.
Yeah.
Men are not going to leave civilization if women want to stay in civilization.
Yeah. If women want civilization, the problem, I think what will probably happen is women will stick with it until by the time they say, okay, we're ready to give it up. And you say, well, too late now. We're toast, man. I think that's how it's going to turn out.
I think there will be another little twist here.
Civilization soon enough to stop us going extinct. But I believe that's what needs to happen.
I predict also that this summer, there's going to be a lot of parties. These rich people, these Jeff Bezos, they're going to announce parties, end of the world parties, these big parties, and people are going to want to come. And if the women want to go to those parties, the men are going to go with them.
Yep. Well, I don't think
things like Burning Man, Burning Man.
You're going to be invited to that, but let's talk about that next time.
Let's talk about that. Let's talk
about the guys sacrificing at Burning Man.
Well, and I think they're going to see some of these rich people announce big parties. I can see Elon Musk announcing one out in the desert down in Southern California. You know, these rich guys let's have a big party.
Yeah, blow out all their money, have a final blow.
Yeah, Woodstock type things, kind of Woodstock type events, big bonfires.
You have a huge end of species party, and at the end of it, they do a Great Gatsby, blow his brains out.
It's going to be hilarious. There's going to be a lot of hilarity there, Hugh. A lot of hilarity.
Yeah, we won't mention what hilarity is all about. That
spoiler alert! Spoiler alert! I challenge people to look that up while we're planning the next video.
Look up what the hilaria is, and you can see where this is all going.
Great way to end, Hugh.
Okay. All right. Well, anyway, that's cool.
Talk to you later.
Talk to you later. Cheers.